What's good everyone, it's Zigzag here, welcome back to another GeoGuessr video and welcome to a video which I've been planning for a long time. So today I am joined by my good friend GeoNebula aka Phil. Welcome back to the channel, my friend.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
It is so fantastic to have you on again. So Phil has a history working in botany, and even though he doesn't work in the field at the moment, he is still a very avid hobby botanist. And for today's video, he's made me a series of challenge maps which you can play along with in the description. And basically, I'm going to play through these challenges, and he's going to explain the different species after I've made my guesses, and we'll find out all about some different plants from around the United States. So GeoNebula, anything to mention before we head into the first seed here?
So these maps that I made, my focus was to add species or emphasize species that I found helpful when playing GeoGuessr, and also just species that I think are cool that I like to talk about. It was a lot of fun to make, and I'm really excited to share it with you.
All right, everyone, challenge link is in the description. Let's get straight into this first map, see if I can cook up on some of this vegetation. Okay, we're immediately... Okay. This is interesting. This is a very cool looking tree. A Texas live oak, which we've talked about in the past, but I'm not exactly sure if that's that. I feel like it looks maybe a bit different here. It's definitely Western US to me. Like, I don't think it's going to be east of, like, this line here. I am thinking maybe it is a bit further west than Texas even, maybe like Colorado or maybe New Mexico or something like that. It could even be like actually Northwest. Yeah, I don't think it's a live oak. I think I'm going to say it's like something maybe found in like the valleys of Colorado or something. I'm not too sure here though. But let's have a look around. Yeah, we have a bunch of them. Okay, yeah, that's my best guess. What is this actually?
Okay, so this is one that I'm really excited to talk about because it's one I didn't even know existed until I played GeoGuessr.
Oh, cool.
And there's actually two trees around here I wanted to talk about, but this one is called the valley oak, and it is a oak tree that it gets quite large. As you can see, they are commonly found on slopes of the Central Valley of California.
Ooh, okay. That makes a lot of sense with this landscape, actually. Okay, so it's the
Right.
Valley Oak. Well, that makes sense with the name, I guess.
Absolutely. And actually, I say slopes, but I think you can also find the species in the Central Valley itself. But you can just see, judging by the landscape here, that we're definitely in kind of like a hilly area.
Yeah.
If you zoom in on some of those pine trees on your right,
Like these ones here?
absolutely, yeah. These trees, this is another species that, again, I didn't even know existed until I played GeoGuessr, and it's called the gray pine. It's called the gray pine because, as you can see, the needles have like this kind of silvery quality to it. It makes it more gray than, like, say, the average pine needles. And it also is restricted only to like basically the slopes of the Central Valley of California as well.
So these ones feel kind of familiar. I wonder if we have these in Australia sometimes as well. Could be the case.
I think, yeah, there are. I don't think it's a pine, but I think there's one called the Australian pine that, yeah, I see what you're saying. It kind of has like that silveriness to it.
Okay, so let's put in my... Oh, I was in Colorado, but let's put in a guess around here maybe. I feel like it is going to be north of San Fran this time, but I'm not sure how far north. Let's go in Grass Valley here and find out where it actually is. Okay, it actually was a bit further south there, more towards LA. Interesting one. Oh, you do have some hills here. So shall we look up our naturalist on this one?
Yeah, go ahead. This is a good example here to show. Look up Valley Oak first.
So we're coming up to the top one, which is just covered by my webcam. We're going to tap in Valley Oak, and then it should just give us a drop down, select it here, and then it's going to show us where exactly it is. And look at that. So regional specific. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a really good one to know, I'd say, because I know there's probably some other clues you can use to judge whether or not you're in California, but sometimes you might have a rural road where you're kind of away from those clues. So that's where plants really come in GeoGuessr.
Yeah.
And yeah, this one, just a really spectacular tree, and one that I was really excited to learn about.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. And imagine, like, I was in Colorado, but if I just knew the tree, then I would have guaranteed myself the state. So that's very cool.
Absolutely. Gray pine too is another one.
Yeah, the gray pine. Okay, well, let's check that out quickly as well. So the gray pine with an A is, okay, also just basically hugging the hills of California. Maybe not as common from what I'm observing. Definitely also useful for sure. Nice, that was round one. Let's head through to round two. Okay, so here we are. We got these low bushes here. These are very, like, familiar. I feel like we have these in Australia as well, maybe. Obviously Western with the landscape, that's for sure. But I'll try and just go off the vegetation here. To me, this immediately gave me, like, a Southern California, Nevada, maybe even Utah, but I think, like, Nevada / SoCal vibe here. To me, it could be further north. I don't know. I can't tell quite if these are warm trees or cold trees, but I'm gonna say Nevada's my main thought here. In which case, maybe like the southern half of Nevada. We're going northeast. Let's go near Hiko, Nevada. Let's take a look at the rest of the round. Well, it seems quite populated, so maybe we are actually somewhere that probably has a bit more people. But I'll leave my guess here, and let's hear what we're meant to be looking at.
Oh, sure. So there's two species here that I really wanted to emphasize and point out. So first thing is, you notice that shrub right there at the edge of the road? Yeah, that one right there. Yes, that's called creosote, and it is a extremely common desert shrub in the Mojave, Chihuahuan deserts, and Sonoran deserts. Typically not found in the higher elevation deserts, like the colder deserts, but especially like southern Arizona, southeastern California, West Texas, places like that.
Okay.
Have a lot of creosote bushes.
Mexico border, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. It's extremely drought tolerant. It can take the heat. And whenever you see one, you're bound to see a lot more. And actually, if you look into the distance there, all of that brownish green that you see all the way up that slope, and even behind you too, going towards that city, all that color is creosote.
Creosote. Okay, nice.
Creosote, really, really helpful one if you know that you're in a desert in the west somewhere, but you don't know how far north or south. If you see creosote, you can be sure that you're somewhere not too far from the Mexican border.
Gotcha. Okay, nice one. And the second?
The second one is you see those other shrubs in there that have light green leaves compared, not that one, but the taller ones in the back. Yes, that's another one called honey mesquite.
Ooh, I've heard the name of this one before.
Yes, yeah, it's a really, really common tree in Texas, but also you can find it throughout several other deserts in the Southwest. But I found it to be a lot like most common in like Central Texas, Western Texas, stuff like that. But seeing honey mesquite growing alongside creosote is something I see a lot around the Texas-New Mexico border specifically. So I kind of wanted to highlight this plant community here. Right, it's definitely something that's coming clutch for me.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so this is the creosote? Southern creosote, was it called?
Or just creosote, yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the dark green one.
Okay, yeah. Okay, these two, like, and so if you're saying basically when I see this combination, should be thinking of this area, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. And I think to me it looks a little. We do have a slight Texas pavement here. I'm gonna say we're right on the border. There's a Big Bend area, something like that, maybe. All right, let's go for that, and we'll see it on iNaturalist as well soon. Okay, yeah, I was right. Okay, right on these mountains here. Very cool indeed. Okay, so let's check out those two. So firstly, I'm searching for
creosote or Laria tridentata.
Wow, so this one has a global reach. Definitely appears in South America, but most common here for sure.
Yeah, you're actually looking at creosote bushes. You can see there at the top because you search the genus. So there's actually other creosote bushes in South America. So it's actually an interesting biogeography fact.
Right. Okay. So they're not appearing actually. The ones we specifically saw this time. Okay.
Yeah. Notice how it just tends to grow in the southern deserts as opposed to like the Painted Desert on the Colorado Plateau or anywhere, say north of like Las Vegas. You don't really find it very often.
This one is again super regional specific. Like definitely can help you send a much better guess. I can see that. And so this one was the one. The creosote was the one with the lighter bush. Yeah. The lighter color.
Oh, sorry. The darker color, actually.
The creosote was this one.
Oh, no. That's the honey mesquite.
Okay, yeah.
That's creosote. Yep. Yeah. You got it. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then we'll look up mesquite. Okay, so this one's also found somewhat in Australia and definitely South Africa, but most commonly in, Texas. It's a Texas plant, really.
Yeah, it's native to North America, but it's been introduced to other parts of the world. I think it's unfortunately an invasive plant in like South Africa and stuff like that.
Interesting. And so back to the round, just to remind myself the look of it. This is how it looks here. Very fine leaves. It's more leafy than the creosote. The mesquite. The
way I always describe it is they're like feather-like leaves. They're usually pretty kind of like graceful, and they also tend to droop on the branches, to droop downward. Especially you'll notice that on the larger trees once you kind of like find the mesquite closer to like central and southern Texas where they get more rainfall. They'll get larger, and you really get that effect of like the droopiness, like exaggerated. Yeah,
right. Gotcha. Okay, that's great. Round number 3 here. Let's go, Phil. See what we get. Okay, we got southern pines and we got fan palms here. This is 2 ones I know, surely. I'm thinking this is... All right, if I remember the range correctly from your coaching of me in the past, then we'd say Florida, we'd say Georgia, particularly the coastal part, and then even like South Carolina, North Carolina can stretch up here, this kind of landscape. Looking at the kind of vibes of the round, I'm thinking maybe like around Jacksonville, Savannah kind of area.
That's a solid guess right there. And yeah, you remembered. It's yeah, definitely southern pines. You can like look at the needles up there.
Yeah.
And you can see that the branches and everything are a lot more disorganized compared to eastern white pine, which tends to have like distinct layers of branches. And also, I think we have multiple species of southern pines going on right here.
Okay.
Look at like kind of the tops of the trees up there to your left, and notice how some of them have longer needles than the ones next to them.
So that one
Especially,
has
yeah, that
fairly
one right
long.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, that one I'm almost certain is a longleaf pine, which is a very important tree species in the coastal southeastern U.S., especially like sandy areas, and it's also adapted for fires.
Okay.
So areas that receive like a certain degree of wildfires actually benefit this tree.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of similar to eucalyptus trees, I feel. And then these ones, I feel like these ones actually may have a smaller one, but it's kind of hard to tell. They're kind of far. Can I find another one? Okay, these ones look shorter, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, and also the southern pines can hybridize, which makes it even more complicated.
Right.
But yeah, I think what we're looking at here is probably a mix of longleaf pine and slash pine. It's another one that's pretty common around Florida and like the Gulf coastal plain, stuff like that. But if you look at those palms that you noticed that right away. Yeah, down there, this species is actually called palmetto. And this is the one that I was really hoping to find for this map, because it's one that's helped me in the past with distinguishing, whether I'm on the east side of the Mississippi River or the west side of the Mississippi River.
Right.
This species is only found in coastal pine forests on the east side of the Mississippi River, especially peninsular Florida, and it kind of hugs the Gulf Coast a little bit to about Mississippi.
Okay.
And goes up the Atlantic coast to about, I think, South Carolina.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
And so that it's really quite a tropical one, but also quite coastal, you're saying. Okay.
Absolutely, yes. And you'll see them growing in those clumps like that, which is very characteristic of saw palmetto. Other species of palmetto, like the just the sable palmetto, which you also see a lot in Florida, that's the one that kind of grows as like a more typical looking palm tree. Like it has a long trunk, and you'll see it kind of growing by itself in a pine savanna or something like that. But the saw palmetto kind of sprawls along the ground in these clumps in the understory of pine forests like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool. I think it's kind of looks really nice. It's kind of aesthetically pleasing, this area.
Yeah,
also, I do see like some kind of level of elevation here, either direction. So I'm thinking I actually do like the kind of near Savannah, Georgia guess here over Florida, perhaps. Okay, well, it's actually Panhandle. Okay, that makes sense.
No, that was still a solid guess. Glad that you made that conclusion early on after seeing the southern pines and the palmetto, because that's definitely a good plant to know for the Florida area.
100%, 100%. Saw palmetto. Okay, and yeah, look at that. That's so, I mean, if you have 3 guesses, you put 1 here, you put 1 here, you put 1 here, and you've got it completely covered.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really helpful plant. And like I said, like whenever I see it, I know for a fact that I'm in this area as opposed to say like Eastern Texas, because some of the pine forests in like East Texas, Louisiana, and even Southern Arkansas can like resemble some of the pine forests you can see in that part of the country as well.
Definitely, so. And these ones can look, especially like I feel like this border area here can look quite tropical, so that's really good to know. Out of curiosity, I was mentioning fan palms. Do fan palms show up in the US?
I think, yeah, fan palms, I'm pretty sure refer to like kind of like several different species of palms that kind of have that fan-shaped frond, because like coconut palms, for example, have more of like a long frond, right? That kind of droops downward. I'm pretty sure fan palmetto just refers to this like that specific shape of palm frond that you kind of see on saw palmetto, and also like different species of like the sable palmetto.
When I talk about fan palms as a meta, I'm thinking of eastern Mexico along the Gulf.
Oh, interesting.
From like Yucatan all the way up to like maybe Tampico. There's a lot of like fan palms, and they used it to distinguish east from west in Mexico. So, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know what that's called.
Yeah, that one's. I think I do. I think that's called the sable mexicana.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, so there you go. It does hug the east coast, but also south in Oaxaca, Chiapas, and then also a bit into Mexico there. I mean, Texas there.
Yeah, I've actually walked through a Mexican palmetto forest in South Texas before. It's really unique habitat.
So yeah, this is the type of one. So a little bit different to the saw palmetto, but yeah. definitely also quite useful. And they can get
For
big as
sure.
well. I mean, this is also listed as the same genus or whatever.
It is, yes.
Right. Okay, so guys, on the second channel, GeoGuessr Explained, we're going to be playing a map of northern pines versus southern pines. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you're still watching, you're clearly interested in this, we're going to make a video over on Phil's channel, and also his Twitch is linked into the description, and you can check that out because he's streaming fairly regularly. Okay, so moving on to the fourth round here. I mean, the scores so far have been okay, but I haven't nailed any of them yet, so hopefully I can on one of these next ones. Okay. I mean, immediately, like with the moss everywhere, I'm thinking this is a bit further north. And I think we may actually be looking at eastern white pines here. But, what would you say? The kind of needles are very fine here. Very fine. So I'm assuming this is the tree we're meant to be looking at. I actually don't know if this is east or west. I got an east vibe, but it certainly can be west. And we have a different kind of tree over on this side, maybe more of like a maple. I forget what the other ones that have leaves that look like maple leaves are, but yeah, it might be a maple. I'm thinking that this would be like quite far north Appalachians, maybe New England. Yeah, I think that's my best guess here. I think this is New England. I don't think these are eastern white pines though. I think it's some other kind of pine, which I don't know. Okay, so I guess I'll put my guess in New Hampshire here.
All right, so yeah, I'm really excited to show you this one too, because there's a lot going on here to talk about as far as plants go, and it's really, really going to help you differentiate Western forest versus Eastern forest when it comes to North America. So what we're looking at here is a very beautiful example of temperate forest in the Western side, the Pacific side of North America.
Dang.
Yeah, and actually, these trees here that you guessed were white pine, I think are actually Douglas fir. I'm actually not 100% sure. I'm almost certain it's Douglas fir. If it's not Douglas fir, it's probably Western hemlock. But another thing you'll notice right away is just notice how much moss is blanketing the kind of like the twigs and the branches of these trees.
Yeah.
Especially on the other side of the road too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, like huge amounts. I remember we saw that in the West last time. I did have a niggling suspicion that we might be over that way, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, this is one where like you really need to know the tree species, otherwise you're a bit lost here. There's nothing going on.
Yeah, it's not only just how humid the environment is with all that moss covering the branches, because a lot of the forests, especially right along the Pacific coast up there, are classified as temperate rainforest.
Yeah.
So they just get dumped on year round mostly, especially in the wintertime.
Right.
With tons of rain, keeping it nice and humid, so you get all this plant growth. And the maple, which you correctly guessed, that's growing above you and also under those trees to your right and to your left.
Yeah.
That species is one that's native to the Pacific Northwest called big leaf maple.
Yes, I remember this one now. Great.
Yeah, this is another one that I learned about through GeoGuessr, and I just noticed immediately how big those leaves were. It actually has the largest leaves of any maple species in the world.
Right. I feel like we discovered this one when we were playing together. I feel like that's the first time you were like, then you looked it up and you're like, oh, big leaf maple.
Oh, we definitely talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something like that.
Okay. So I knew I had to add it to the map too.
For sure.
Because it's a good one to know. There's one more plant I wanted to talk about here.
Which is that, the ferns or?
Yes, absolutely. The ferns right along the side of the road there, that's called a Western sword fern. It's an extremely common fern species in the understory of forests in the Pacific Northwest. I see it almost every single time I'm in a habitat like this, or I get a location like this, because they're just so ubiquitous. Pretty easy to identify once you like see them a few times. They tend to grow in like a tight clump, spreading out like in a I guess like in a radial manner. Wherever they occur, you'll just see tons of them growing in the forest understory. That's also a great plant to know because it's specifically found on the Pacific coast. Though I think you might also be able to find it in some parts of the Rocky Mountains, but I can't really remember. But I think it's mostly the Pacific Northwest.
Well, let's switch off New Hampshire and into Washington here. I'm gonna go Oakville, Washington here. Let's find out. Okay, not too bad. Just on the or over in Oregon even. Okay, nice.
Not bad.
Is there any plant you want to draw out on the map there?
Let's look up Western sword fern.
Okay, the Western sword fern. Let's check out the distribution. Okay, so all along the west. That's indeed the case.
Yeah, it looks like you have a little bit in northern Idaho, but it's probably not nearly as abundant. as you find it along the Pacific coast.
And I mean, this area does get quite green, so that makes quite a bit of sense to me as well. But definitely centered around, you know, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland. Okay, nice. Okay, final one of this seed. So, I mean, this 100% looks like Texas. Just I can see the road. This is like the most Texan road of all time. Have a look at these plants, because even Texas can be region guessable, I feel, just based on plants alone. So, we have this one. Is that a juniper? That was the first thing I thought of. It might be a juniper. These trees, they look like big versions of the one we had in the first round. I forget what it's called.
Oh, honey mesquite.
Yeah, it looks like a big version of the honey mesquite, which would make sense because that, I believe, was the one that's mostly found in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we do have some, like, prickly pear there as well. Okay, that's interesting.
You got it.
So, I'm thinking that this is fairly southern Texas. I don't think it should be, like, above Dallas. I want to say that. It's quite flat. And it's quite dry. I'm thinking maybe around San Angelo or something like that. Could even be further towards Mexico, but that's kind of my vibe here. I think I'll go for that.
All right. So, yeah, this is one that I added because I wanted to really focus on the honey mesquite because it's one that's come in so handy for me while playing GeoGuessr. And yeah, you correctly identified it. Notice it's the same plant that we saw earlier, but just much larger, and you can really see that that drooping nature to it.
You can.
And also just notice how light green those leaves are compared to, I guess it's mostly honey mesquite here, but there's a few other trees in the mix.
Right, let me find another one. Like, I mean, just even this one, much lighter
That
than
one,
that.
yeah. Notice how common it is. There's absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
It's also very big compared to the ones you'll see further west in drier climates. So what that tells me when I see that is that we're somewhere not too far west. We're probably in central or southern Texas.
Okay, nice.
You'll also find honey mesquite to around Dallas and even like southern Oklahoma. So it can be kind of hard sometimes to like differentiate southern versus like northern Texas. But
I guess at that point you're kind of
usually
using the size of the trees and kind of the climate more so than the occurrence of honey mesquite or not, perhaps.
Yeah, another thing I noticed is that south of like say San Antonio, as you're going towards South Texas, you'll see a lot of honey mesquite, but you'll also see some other species like acacias and stuff like that mixed in as well. Whereas if you go north towards Dallas, you'll most likely see things like live oaks and other like deciduous hardwood species. I'm
thinking from your description, maybe it's a little bit further east, just based on how many we have than I've guessed, but you know, let's find out right. Okay, yeah, a bit further southeast there. And you know, in hindsight, with the prickly pear showing up, maybe that is something you'd probably find closer towards Mexico, do you reckon?
Actually, yeah, prickly pear is something that you can find throughout most of Texas, but especially say like Dallas and south, you get a lot of them. You get a lot of them around Austin, San Antonio as well. Seeing prickly pear and honey mesquite together like that is a classic like central Texas landscape.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense there. And would you look at that? With Phil's tips, we were able to get the region every single time here, although we didn't have any insane guesses, but still pretty good stuff. Okay, so that was a fun one. Let's head through to the next round, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here's the second challenge map, link in the description. Let's get it. Immediately, okay.
Oh.
This is one we've discussed in the past. I'm pretty confident this kind of tree here, I reckon. We've got like those kind of smaller looking leaves, which it's not like a no, I feel like it's got some. Okay, let me try and cook on this one. It hasn't got like sugar or sweet in the name or something, has it?
Oh, you're so close. Yeah, so
what am I thinking of?
What you're thinking of is sweet gum.
Sweet gum.
Sweet gum, yes, but this tree you're looking at right now is actually not sweet gum.
Okay. Let's take a look around the rest here. I mean, yeah, definitely kind of more northish looking trees to me here. Fairly dense vegetation. Oh, interesting, like very pale road here. We do have like a fairly strong mix. It kind of reminds me of something you'd get in this latitude in Europe, but the US is kind of colder at the same latitude. Anyway, and then we have this one, which looks quite similar to the pine we had up in western US. This is clearly not there. I don't think we have too much eastern white pine here, and I would expect like forests up here to like have a ton of that. So maybe I'm thinking we're more so out here, like this kind of direction. I think the road would also fit, like the very pale road would kind of fit for that area too. Yeah, I don't really know. In terms of vegetation, I'm kind of clueless here, but I'm just going to send it here and let's find out.
Oh, wow. That's a really, really good guess. You're absolutely right.
Oh, let's go.
So you said, yeah, eastern white pine is As far as I can tell, completely absent
Right.
from at least the view that we have here. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it here.
Yeah.
That pine tree that you noticed earlier, I want to talk about that one real quick.
Yep.
This one's called Virginia pine.
Ooh, okay.
And it's one of my personal favorite pine trees. It's one that I grew up around in like northern Alabama, but you find it throughout the Appalachian Mountains. You'll see it along roadsides, growing in stands on rocky soil. But the thing that's characteristic of these pines is look how short those needles are
Very
compared
short.
to other pines. They almost looks like a juniper, honestly.
Yeah.
From this far away. But actually, there's one that's closer. If you zoom out and look to your right, there's another Virginia pine right there, and you can actually see the pine cones on it, which are also
wow.
very small. Everything about the Virginia pine is small. It's got those
Interesting.
small needles.
Yeah.
It's got the small cones. And it doesn't even grow as tall as like certain other pine species, but it can grow fairly tall.
Yeah, like this one's fairly sizable. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a great species to know because seeing Virginia pine can tell you whether or not you are in the Appalachian Mountains or if you're in the Ozark Mountains, say of like northern Arkansas or something like that. Virginia pine is, as far as I know, basically completely absent from the Ozark Mountains and the Ouachita Mountains, which is all west of the Mississippi River. There could be some planted specimens, but as far as I know, there's no wild populations. But it's extremely common in the Appalachian Mountains in certain areas. And it's just readily identified by how short those needles are and how small those cones are.
Definitely. I think I can identify that in the future for sure.
It's a helpful one. I want to talk about that other tree right there to your left, the light green leaves, those big light green leaves. So you were assuming this could be sweet gum, and you're very, very close.
Okay, nice.
This one is one of my personal favorites. It's called the tulip tree.
Okay.
And if you zoom in a little bit more, let's see if you can on those leaves.
They look like
notice how they have 4 prominent lobes on there. To me, they kind of remind me of starfish, like in how they look.
Well, like a dove. It kind of looks like a dove as well.
Oh, I didn't see that, but I like that. Yeah. But no, a very unique leaf shape. Once you see it and you kind of learn it, you'll see it like in the future and you'll just know because no other leaf looks quite like that. And it's a very common tree also in like the Appalachian Mountain region around like Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, West Virginia. Places like that, I think, is where it reaches its highest abundance. It really likes really lush, humid, temperate forest habitat.
Sure.
If you see it, you can be certain also that you're probably east of the Mississippi River as opposed to west, because it's another species that you don't typically see in the Ozark Mountains of like Missouri and Arkansas, for example. Seeing it on the side of the road like that tells me that I'm probably in the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, it's fantastic. Okay, and this one, these are 2 trees which, have very unique leaves, so I feel like I can recognize these in the future.
There's another one on the other side of the road too, by the way.
Cool,
it's a baby.
One. Yeah, nice. That's cute. Okay, so then, I think I'm happy to send it in. Well, basically, Kentucky seems like it is part of the range of both trees, so shall we find out how close I am? Not too bad.
Very good. You got it.
Excellent.
Oh, one more thing I wanted to say about this one. You also notice how many different species of trees you were seeing, like different leaf shapes on the side of the road. That's something you commented on?
Different, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different leaf shapes, so many different species. That's a very good observation because this area of like the central Appalachians, like right in the middle of the country, like around Kentucky, southern Ohio, West Virginia, you get a really high diversity of broadleaf deciduous trees. And you also tend to see fewer pines, which is something like when you go south towards the Gulf Coast or like, Georgia, Alabama, you'll see way more pine trees in general, southern pines.
And then up here, even more pines as well, right? So
absolutely. So the way I see it is like, it's kind of like this little sweet spot right around, say, like probably 40-ish degrees north latitude in the Appalachian Mountains, where you get way more diversity and abundance of broadleaf trees and relatively fewer pine species.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great information. I mean, that can just help you get a vibe guess when it's completely rural, surely. So that's great. It's great info. Nice one. And so I think we should look up the, which one was I interested in looking up? Virginia pine. Let's take a look at that. Extremely concentrated around Maryland, Virginia, but also, I mean, pretty much, just hugging either side of the Appalachians there, huh?
There is a lot of them around Washington, D.C. and stuff, but that could also be a function of the population there.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more observers submitting observations on iNaturalist.
than out in the middle of West Virginia, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
way the site
That's something to
works.
keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind with iNaturalist is that it is based on users submitting observations. So more remote areas, while it looks like Virginia pine doesn't occur there, it's probably just because there's not a lot of people out there submitting observations, but it's
Yeah.
probably there.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
The
look up
tulip.
a tulip tree.
Okay, tulip tree, fairly similar range, but much more common and much more widely found, I guess.
Pretty broad distribution, but notice how like the observations kind of taper off when you go west. There
Yeah,
are
you're
some
right.
observations west of the Mississippi River, but I think most of those are probably observations of trees that were planted. I could be wrong. There aren't too many native populations of tulip tree west of the Mississippi River, so most of it's going to be in the Appalachian Mountain region.
Cool, nice one. And would you look at that? This almost looks like Australia. That's really interesting. We have some kind of pine here, very thin needles. Kind of reminds me of the gray pine we had in Cali, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Okay, this is, again, looks like something I would see in Australia as well. And I guess we're meant to be looking at this one. So I don't really know what vibe I get off this tree. It's not familiar to me at all, really. So now I'm just trying to get off the landscape what I actually think this is. Maybe I would actually just try California for the reason that it kind of looks a bit like Australia, a bit Mediterranean in a way. And also, it does seem fairly similar to the gray pines. I mean, the needles themselves are not particularly green, I've noticed, especially compared to like a southern pine. So yeah, maybe I would try that again. Feels kind of warm, but it's like during the winter, so maybe, yeah, maybe around this area again or something like that. I'm kind of clueless here. What are we looking at?
Dude, Oscar, I'm so happy that you properly guessed the gray pine.
Let's
That
go.
is so awesome.
Let's go.
Yes, that is gray pine. And actually, I was worried that because it's a cloudy day here with this photo, it's kind of hard to see how gray the needles are because
Right.
it's like just the way the lighting is.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Those are gray pines.
Let's go, guys.
And yes, that's again shows an extremely helpful plant. So you're able to narrow down California.
Nice.
Another plant I wanted to talk about here, and this is one that I learned about while researching to make this map, is I think what we're looking at here with that you can zoom in there. It's like this kind of maroon red color, extremely unique. Like you don't see that color on the branches of many trees at all. But I think what we're looking at here is either smooth white leaf manzanita or common manzanita, one of those two. But the manzanitas are they're in the blueberry family.
Ooh,
and
that kind of makes sense with the color of the leaves, huh?
Yeah, and you mostly find them around California, especially these two species I mentioned, the smooth white leaf manzanita or the common manzanita are both found basically like around San Francisco or around the slopes of the Central Valley, which again, we notice gray pine here is another species that occurs on those slopes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Nice. Okay. I think I'll send in my guess here and find out how close I am. Not too bad. Up near Sacramento there. Very nice in the hills there. But there we go. Got the state.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Look up smooth white leaf manzanita.
And indeed, okay, very concentrated on the eastern side of the valley in Cali. And Sacramento would be the best guess, apparently.
Absolutely. I think that's what we're seeing here, but I'm not 100% sure because there are several other species of manzanita in California. I'm no expert at telling them apart, but just based off of photos that I've seen, like, I think that's what we're looking at.
Excellent. Okay, next round here. We got huge cactuses, depending on what you want to say, and maybe Joshua trees, I think. A big cactus, I would say that's like most commonly found from what you've told me, like southern Arizona. But then again, the Joshua trees obviously probably center around Joshua Tree National Park. Let me actually try and work out based on the rest of the round. I think it looks more like Arizona than Cali to me, just vibes-wise. And also we don't have front plates, so that would maybe check out. I think I will go for that for the reason that we're kind of getting a mix of both landscapes. I'm gonna say we're near Phoenix here, but yeah, I guess my guess is like from here to here. I'm gonna go, if we have lots of hills around, I'm gonna go here.
Oh my gosh, Oscar, I was so excited to add this one because this is actually a road that I've been on in real life.
Nice.
And it's something that I found out about only recently, probably just within the past few months. But
okay.
You correctly guessed Joshua Tree. That is definitely what you're looking at there to your right. Iconic tree of the Mojave Desert, mostly found in southeastern California.
Right.
And also southern Nevada.
Yeah.
So yeah, that whole region there, if you see Joshua Tree, you're almost certainly in that area.
Okay.
But what makes this location in particular so unique is that you also notice that other iconic plant, the giant cactus,
is it Sonoran?
called the saguaro. Yes,
saguaro,
and actually, the saguaro cactus is like the most iconic species of plant in the Sonoran Desert, which is basically southern Arizona from like Phoenix and Tucson down to like southern Sonora, basically.
Nice. Okay. So
What's
conflicting
interesting about this
metas here.
location?
Conflicting metas.
Actually, one of the reasons why I'm so excited to show you this one is that it's really a great example of this approach that I take when I play GeoGuessr and I'm using plants. Is like this Venn diagram approach, where if you know the range of one species and if you know the range of another species and you see them together, it can really narrow things down. This is like a really, really stark example of this because the Joshua tree is almost exclusively found in Southern California. The saguaro cactus is almost exclusively found in Arizona, though there are a few populations in like extreme Eastern California. But for the most part, if you see a saguaro, you're in Arizona.
Right,
so,
right. I think I'm leaning more this direction now then.
Yeah, no, you got it. You got it.
Okay, so I mean, at this point, if we've narrowed it down so well, then at this point it's almost worth looking for like a road with the correct angle or something like that. Maybe like this one or something could work in certain places. That would be pretty good. Shall we send our guess in? I think we shall.
Oh man, go for it.
Ooh, not too. Oh, what was this road? Not too bad,
dude. You're. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything because man, you were like right on the money there.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
But yeah, no, you got it. You got it. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, this is actually something that I saw in real life, and it's on this Highway 93, right between Phoenix and Las Vegas.
Yeah, and that makes sense with the lack of front plates as well from a GeoGuessr perspective. So yeah, nice, not too bad at all. Okay, so through to the next. I think people know the ranges for those two, so we'll just head through to the next one here, where I think we have live oaks. Well, that's my initial vibe. Okay, we have juniper. Do we actually have live oaks? Okay, I think this one's a live oak. Let's see here. I mean, everything makes sense. We got a very Texan road. Front plates, juniper plus live oak. That would put us like, I think between Austin and Dallas. Maybe more so, maybe the hills would be like more Austin. I'm gonna go here.
Man, you are right on the money there.
Let's go.
Yes, we are seeing live oak, specifically Texas live oak, and the juniper we're seeing. Well, especially if you look behind you, is a good example of the live oak.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this one here. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, towering over you. That's the Texas live oak, and to your left is the ash juniper, which is an extremely common juniper species that you find in the hill country of Texas, right around Austin and San Antonio. Go for it.
I have actually traveled around British Columbia with my grandpa who lives there, and when we stayed in Ashcroft, BC, there was a lot of juniper there, which is pretty crazy how far north that is. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a really interesting part of Canada. Yeah,
probably I remember the driest part of Canada. I think right here in this specific part.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I think they even have like prickly pear and stuff around there. It's crazy.
Insane.
But yeah, you guessed right. We're looking at Texas live oak and ash juniper. But there's one more species of plant here that is the reason why I picked this location in particular. And it's one of my personal favorite plants. And it can be easily overlooked. But once you see it, it's a huge hint in GeoGuessr.
Okay.
The plant is actually growing on another plant.
Ooh, oh, is it this stuff?
Absolutely, yes. Actually, you can see a lot more on the left side of the tree of the live oak there.
Yeah.
Look at all that. So that is a cousin of Spanish moss called ball moss.
Ball moss, yes. I've heard you mention this before. Okay.
Yes, this is one of my favorites.
B-A-L-L, ball?
Yeah. B-A-L-L-M-O-S-S.
Yep.
And it is actually related to the pineapple.
Oh.
So is Spanish moss, by the way. It is a epiphytic bromeliad, or they're also called air plants. It's in the genus Tillandsia. It's mostly tropical.
Oh.
Mostly tropical. So if you see it in the United States, you know you're either probably in Texas or peninsular Florida.
Right.
Though it does occur in a few isolated places along the Gulf Coast, but for the most part, you're in Texas or Florida, especially in the hill country of Texas around Austin or San Antonio.
Yeah.
Is where you'll see a lot of ball moss.
And I was about to say, like, yeah, that would make more sense than near Dallas, because already that would be getting significantly less tropical, I feel.
You're exactly right. Yes.
Nice. This is a really cool round. I mean, Texas has actually got to be one of the best places in the world for just like guessing based on vegetation, I feel.
Oh yeah, it's spectacular for that. Very, very diverse.
Yeah. Okay, so let's send it in a little closer to Austin and San Antonio then. Nice. Very good. Super stuff.
Very good guess. Good stuff. And actually, if you want to pull up the range of ball moss on iNaturalist, you can see what I'm talking about as far as like its range goes, because it's extremely concentrated in like the hill country of Texas, but you won't find it at all around Dallas.
Right. Yes.
Because it's too cold.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess just during the winter would almost be not quite snowing in Dallas, but getting down pretty low, right? So so fairly commonly found elsewhere in the world as well. South America and, well, when I say elsewhere in the world, in the Americas, in that kind of similar kind of climate range, I guess. Interesting that it's seen so much in Buenos Aires. Wow.
Oh yeah, another interesting thing about ball moss that you might have noticed, especially I'll see this in Mexico a lot, is ball moss can grow on power lines. So,
true. Oh, I see. I wonder if that's the same thing which you see a lot of times growing on power lines in the hills of Argentina.
Probably so. Yeah, almost certainly.
I bet I could find it. I bet I could find it in a few clicks here. Let's see.
Yeah, I've seen that in Texas
here
too.
we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Look at that.
That's cooking.
Crazy.
I was cooking.
You were cooking. Yeah, you found it.
Nice.
That's most likely all ball moss. There might actually be some other tillandsias that can grow on power lines, but I think ball moss for the most part is the one that's most successful. It doesn't seem to care about the substrate that it grows on. And how it propagates is these wind dispersed seeds that are sticky. So basically it gets blown in the wind and sticks to that power line and germinates.
Right. Fascinating.
But I really cool.
I really think it's actually quite useful for northwestern Argentina up in the mountains. For some reason, it's just like you often see power lines that look like this. So that's kind of cool. And then if you combine it with awesome. You see a weirdly placed palm mixed with mountains, I feel like, yeah, you can pretty much narrow down the area. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, one of my favorites for sure.
Nice. That was a great one. Okay, and the final one here. Okay, we're surely in like the Rocky Mountains here. Are these larches, actually? I think these are larches. Okay. Interesting. I was checking if we have some moss. Surely not on the power lines this time. Okay, let's not look at that. I would say this is almost certainly the Rocky Mountains. It looks like Canada. We have quite a few ferns here. That's interesting. But they're not sword ferns. It's more like a normal, like European looking fern. I would say this definitely looks like Idaho, maybe Montana. I honestly think it's Idaho, Montana, or Washington. That's the only vibe I get here. So yeah, I'm gonna say this is Idaho. I'm gonna say it's like maybe up in the Panhandle on one of these roads or something like that. Let's send that.
Oh man, you were spot on here.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, great guess. And absolutely. And you were also correct that you're looking at larches here.
Yeah, pointed up branches. Yeah.
But especially the ones that are yellow.
Yeah.
Because the thing about larches, and you might have already known this, but they are unlike a lot of other conifers that you find in North America in that they are deciduous and not evergreen.
Conifers. Wow. Okay.
They are deciduous conifers. They drop their needles every year in the fall. And so in the wintertime, they actually don't have any needles on them at all. But in the fall, they are just ablaze in yellow and are extremely easy to notice. And actually, if you look behind you and zoom in on the distant mountains, you can just see.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all of them. Yeah, all of those specks of yellow are larch trees, specifically the western larch.
And that to me really, this kind of mountain with the speckled in yellow really looks like BC. So that's why I really was liking Idaho here.
I was excited to tell you about this species because I found it to be extremely helpful in GeoGuessr because it's one of those species that not only is it easy to recognize, especially at the right time of year. The imagery was taken in the fall. It's like extremely free.
Yeah.
But even in the summer, you'll notice because they're deciduous, they'll have a lot lighter green needles compared to other evergreens around them.
So then you get mixed in light green with so this you can basically replace it with like a light green. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Right. But oh my gosh, this is an extremely helpful tree because it's exactly like you said. If you see this tree, you got to be somewhere in either northern Idaho, western Montana, or like the mountains of Washington and Oregon, but specifically the eastern slopes of the mountains, especially the Cascade Mountains, and not on the kind of like the rainforest side that we were seeing earlier with the big leaf maple and stuff. You won't see larch in that habitat, but you'll see it kind of like in the interior mountains around like Idaho.
Would you see it in Colorado?
No.
Okay. Nice.
You actually wouldn't. And actually, we could pull up the range map
of
this one on iNaturalist too.
Find out. Oh yeah, look at that. So concentrated. Wow, what a useful tree. Nice.
Extremely useful, yes. Especially like you said, when you see it in the fall, it is just a dead giveaway.
Facts.
So So that's why I was super excited to include it in the maps, because this one is easy to recognize. And also, if you see it, it narrows down things substantially too.
100%.
You can basically completely rule out Colorado, Wyoming, all those other places in the Southern Rockies if you see this tree.
Word. And well, I was going to ask about this is, are there any other larches in North America, or is this the extent of North American larches?
You know, I'm glad you asked, because you might encounter another larch in this round.
Okay, well, given the fact that this one is called Western Larch, I am wondering if we're going to see a variant in the east. We'll see. But okay, let's head through to the third and final seed. All right, links in the description. Let's get this. We are on the home stretch. Let's see what we've got. Okay, let's search for larches. I mean, we could actually already be encountering them here. Could that be a larch? Maybe. Okay, so first thing first, we've got a ton of moss going on here. That does remind me of what we saw in the Western US round, so we could be like back in Washington or something like that. I think that could make quite a bit of sense. Are these sword ferns? They look quite similar, but they're bigger than last time we saw them. We also have a kind of interesting ground leaf, which looks a bit like a maple, but maybe not quite. And then, yeah, I'm looking at this one over here. Is that a larch or not? I'm not too sure. Maybe it's just recency bias. I'm definitely not certain this time. It doesn't look as typical. But I do think I get a West US vibe off this. It could still be Appalachians, but I think the combination of these big ferns mixed with the like amount of moss, like, if it is Eastern, I'm not really quite sure where to place it. So I would say this is, yeah, Washington State or something. I think that's my best guess, so let's find out.
Dude, you are cooking.
Nice.
Yes.
Let's go.
You are cooking, man. Yeah, so exactly like you said. So one of the things you pointed out was the moss on the branches. That is, like you said, very characteristic of the forest of the Pacific Northwest. So you got that. And the fern is indeed Western sword fern, so you got that as well.
Let's go.
Notice how many of them are just growing there in the forest understory, just completely coating the forest floor.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Very beautiful. A wonderful species. Yeah, I'm very happy you're able to correctly identify it too, because it has that unique, again, like kind of like upright ring kind of formation to it.
Yeah.
They have like usually dark green glossy leaves as well, compared to other ferns that might be lighter green. But the reason why I picked this location specifically was there's a tree that I found to be quite helpful on GeoGuessr that I have gotten better at identifying as I kept playing. And it's that tree you're looking at right there, that tall one, that evergreen.
Yeah.
This one's called the Western Red Cedar.
Ooh, okay.
Not to be confused with the Eastern Red Cedar, because this species is actually in an entirely different genus. Ooh. So the name's a little misleading.
Sure.
The Eastern Red Cedar is a juniper. This species is actually I think it's classified as an arborvitae, which is like a completely different thing. But notice how the leaves are like fan shaped and also flattened.
Yeah, they're kind of all pointing down in a way or something.
Yeah, it's like they have like a distinct it's almost fern-like to me. I think that's a good way to describe it. It's like this flattened fan-shaped thing, and that's the thing that I look for if I am seeing a tree and I'm wondering if it's a Western red cedar. If I notice like if the leaf looks like I could lay it flat on a table, as opposed to going in all these different directions, and like if it can lay like flat on a table, and if it's like fern-like, then you're probably looking at Western red cedar. And this is an extremely common tree species in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Washington, Oregon. And you have like a disjunct population in northern Idaho as well, I believe.
Okay.
Well, but for the most part,
that kind of similar climate that we discussed that also has the ferns, the sword ferns. So yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So that's a great example of, I think, what biogeographers would call a disjunct, where it's like a separate population and it's able to subsist based on like the local climate, and it's separate from the larger population in a different area.
I think this is another one that I'll be able to recognize hopefully quite easily after this. So would you see that one in BC? I guess we'll check out the range in a minute here. So that was actually outside Seattle. So I'm assuming we're also going to be able to see that
Solid guess.
in Vancouver as well. Here we are. Okay, so also found in Europe, but heavily concentrated around Seattle, Vancouver, Portland again, as so many species are. Okay, nice. And yeah, you have that disjunct there. So that's pretty cool. And not so much
wonderful
Cali.
Tree. Yeah, notice also that in the southern part of its range, it's only found right on the Pacific coast. And That's because the further south you go, it tends to get warmer and drier.
Yeah, but this is
But
almost
as you
still
hug the Pacific,
rainforest-ish. Yeah.
absolutely. As you hug the Pacific Ocean, it stays more cool and humid,
Yeah.
which is more suited to its requirements.
100%. And you can kind of get the vibe based on looking at the rest of the vegetation as well. But that's a close-up of the leaves there. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've seen one of these in real life for sure. That's cool. Okay, nice.
You might have, yeah. Arborvitaes are pretty popular landscape plants as well.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, they are aesthetically pleasing tree for sure. Okay.
Definitely.
Next round. Back in the west. Back in the west here. Very thin needles on this tree. Okay, is this the same as what we saw on the first round? I'm trying to get a vibe on that. This definitely does look similar. What's the name of the one I'm trying to think of here?
Creosote.
Creosote. Yeah. I think this is one of those.
You got it.
And okay, so it's very sandy. This shouldn't be too far north. This definitely feels like it's not going to be snowing, in my opinion, which makes sense for the creosote. That was one of the ones I believe that hugs the Mexico border. Yeah. Okay. To me, from what I learned about this tree, plus what you've told me in general about landscapes in the past, I would say this looks more like Arizona than New Mexico, and also could still be California for that matter. Yeah, no. I would lean Arizona, California here, and I think maybe more narrowly leaning like more Arizona here. That's my thought.
That is another really solid guess. So you're absolutely right. Like you pointed out, you're seeing creosote, which is the darker green stuff, like out in the distance and also closer to the road. So we see creosote, so we know we're in a desert in the southern part of the southwestern U.S. Somewhere. And also this tree here, where you're wondering about, this is one of the ones I was excited to talk about. It's called the blue Palo Verde.
Palo Verde. Okay.
The state tree of Arizona. It's extremely adapted to the desert. It can take the heat, it can take the dry, and actually you'll notice it actually has green on its actual trunk there, which is where the name Palo Verde comes from, which means green wood. Yeah, I believe in Spanish. Yeah, but that's actually an adaptation for the desert, because when it gets really dry, it actually is drought deciduous. So it will drop its leaves and it will photosynthesize through its bark. It's a really, really neat adaptation. It's a really hardy tree that you'll find almost exclusively in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona, but you'll also find it in Southern California deserts as well.
Wow, I was on the money. Let's go.
You're on the money, yes. And actually, there's another really cool plant here that I want to talk about. Notice that one right there, that ghostly white one, right?
Yeah.
That's growing in the wash there. This might be my new favorite desert tree, because I've seen it in real life and it's just an absolute banger.
Yep.
It is called smoke tree.
Oh, a smoke tree.
And smoke tree, yes, it is extremely hardy, basically covered in spines. I think the scientific name is Sorothamnus spinosa, which refers to the spines, but it's basically all spines. It's a really, really hardcore tree.
Right.
When it flowers in dark purple, and it's absolutely beautiful.
That's amazing.
It's so hardcore. The deserts around Phoenix, Arizona are not dry enough for it typically. It likes it even drier and even hotter, in my experience. So southeastern California and western Arizona is where you're likely to find smoke tree. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So, man, I've really actually nailed it this time. That's awesome. What was I going to say,
really
though?
Did. Good stuff.
This one, like, I was going to say...
Drought deciduous,
deciduous, that's right. I was going to say we have like huge eucalyptus trees on our street, obviously. One thing that you notice during the summer is that they lose huge limbs because the tree pumps up the water from the ground into the branches to keep them cool, but that also makes them heavy. And so that's the time of year where the 40-degree plus days, centigrade, are the days where you like have massive limbs just falling down on cars and stuff. It's kind of interesting.
Wow, that is crazy. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the blue Palo Verde does that as well.
Right.
It will actually shed branches.
And that makes
droughts.
sense why it's green, despite the fact that this is like the driest place you could almost imagine. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
You got it. Yes.
Okay, nice. Let's find out how close I am.
Such a cool tree.
Not too bad there. All the way up and where I guessed last time almost for the the Joshua trees and the saguaro. But yeah, okay, nice. Not too bad. Got the right region there. Okay. Oh, we have Spanish moss this time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, actually, first up,
This is
let's
probably
look
my
up
favorite one.
let's look up one of the ones or two that we had last time.
Blue Paula Verde.
That one looked like this. Okay, yeah, very concentrated in that area, but also in the super dry deserts of Baja and Sonora as well. Smoke tree, same range, but even more concentrated around that border area. This is a super useful one, clearly.
Oh yeah, for sure. And also it's pretty easy to identify once you've seen it a few times because it again has that kind of like ghostly white. It's like a really light gray, bluish kind of hue to it.
Yeah. I was just trying to see if I could find anyone in flower here, but clearly everyone's observing this one during the summer.
Here's one way you can do that. Click one of those observations. Yeah, just any one of those. And then click the name smoke tree. And then click the name smoke tree again on the top there.
I see a picture here. Yep.
Yes, yeah. It'll pull you to the species page.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Amazing.
That's spectacular. That's so cool. I
love that.
Especially
considering where it is.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll bloom in the middle of summer too. So it's like one of the only things around that's blooming that time of year in like the heat of summer.
Right.
And I just absolutely love dark purple flowers. Like it's one of my favorite flower colors. So
definitely. Oh yeah, 100%. Shout outs to Susan MF for being the top observer. She's done 362 of them. Amazing. Okay, so we've got the I remember it ends in eto. I can't remember what it's called.
Palmetto.
Palmetto, yeah. And then we have Spanish moss absolutely everywhere. Now, I am a bit curious about this one because if I'm combining metas here, we have wide lines, which I feel like you don't see in Florida too much. So I am now curious as to whether we are, it looks like Florida, to be sure. But wide lines also you don't really see in Georgia too much either. So are we like all the way south in like Louisiana here, even all the way south in Texas here? Like this is kind of my, GeoGuessr combined guess, if you know what I'm saying. We definitely have a lot of these, but I remember that, with these ones, the palmettos, you do see them like all along the coast, so that could make sense. And it was the bull moss that shows up in Florida and Texas. The Spanish moss, I just remember it being pretty similar to maybe the palmettos from what you told me last time. So all that being said, I think I would, and knowing that you're a Louisiana native, I would maybe go here. That's my guess.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing guess. Great stuff.
Let's go.
Yeah, your logic and your noticing the plants around you is all spot on. And yeah, let me just say, I'm a little biased because I'm from Louisiana, so you guessed that right as well.
You got to use the human element sometimes as well in your guesses, man.
You got to do it. But absolutely, this is probably my favorite out of all the locations I picked.
100%.
And that's saying a lot because I really liked a lot of the locations I found.
That'd be awesome.
This one has such a great vibe to it because it just screams Louisiana. You got the live oak on your left, the giant tree just with the spreading branches over the road, covered in Spanish moss. This is another opportunity to talk about epiphytes, which that's a botanical term for basically a plant that grows on another plant.
Yep.
Spanish moss is an epiphyte. Also resurrection fern, which if you look on that live oak again, take a close look at those branches.
Oh yeah. Oh, so
you'll notice here. Yeah, you'll notice they're completely covered in ferns. That species is called the resurrection fern.
Okay.
It's called that actually because it will shrivel up in dry spells, but when it rains again, they'll come back to life.
Okay.
And I think some scientists found out that they can actually basically resurrect 100-year-old specimens that haven't seen water in like 100 years. I think that's where it got its name from. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
But pretty crazy, yeah. But resurrection fern is a really common plant that you'll see growing on live oaks, especially, actually, honestly, throughout the range of the southern live oak, but especially the more humid areas like southern Louisiana, the Gulf Coast, Peninsular Florida. You'll see a lot of it there as well.
Gotcha.
So yeah, resurrection fern is a amazing epiphyte to know about in GeoGuessr because you can narrow things down to the southeast for sure.
100%. Probably less obvious than the Spanish moss, though, to be fair.
Oh, no, for sure. Absolutely. Spanish moss just really sticks out like a sore thumb when you see it.
So this almost looks more like the Mexican, these palms. These almost looks more like the Mexican ones.
You're absolutely right about that as well because they actually are in the same genus as the Sabal mexicana, which we looked at earlier. Yep. Sabal minor is the scientific name for this one, but it's called the dwarf palmetto.
Even though they're bigger than the last ones we saw.
Yeah, it's a good point because the saw palmetto is even smaller in general. But the dwarf palmetto, I think they're called dwarf because they don't tend to grow a trunk like other palms do. Right. And you'll see them in the understory like this of floodplain forests, swamps, stuff like that, swampy areas. Yeah. Like South Louisiana, You'll see them basically growing in like swampy areas underneath cypress trees, underneath live oaks, stuff like that. And that's exactly what we're
Gulf
seeing
Coast
here.
area kind of stuff when it comes to US, I imagine.
Yes, though it actually is the most cold tolerant palm of North America, I
Oh,
believe.
wow.
You can find them in extreme southeastern Oklahoma, I believe.
Whoa, that's
Well,
fascinating.
so
Okay.
all the way up there. Yeah.
That would be a good bait round, I feel like. That could be some fun.
It would be, yeah.
Right,
But
let's... Yeah.
speaking of cypress trees, sorry, there's another one I wanted to talk about. There's so much going on here.
That.
If you look on your right, on the right side of the road, yes, look in the water there. You'll notice these trees are completely submerged.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And you'll notice these what are called cypress knees coming out from the swamp, especially right there, yeah, in the water and also on the side of the water there.
Wow. Okay, so this is roots coming up out of the water.
Exactly, yes.
Wow.
When you see those, you know you're looking at a cypress tree, specifically the bald cypress, which is I think it's the tree of the state tree of Louisiana, for good reason, because they completely dominate the swamps, especially of the swamps associated with the Mississippi River.
Right.
And you'll often see them draped in Spanish moss like this.
Yeah.
Like some on your left. But yeah, you can see some up there as well, some more cypress knees. But they're actually a deciduous conifer as well, also kind of like the larch.
Okay.
They're not like a pine. They have more feather-like leaves, but they do shed their leaves each fall.
Okay, yeah.
And so you'll see it has that lighter green color, which is characteristic of your more deciduous conifers.
Yeah. The newer leaves. Yeah, sure. Okay. Nice. Let's send it into it then, shall we? Oh, yeah, that's a good guess. That's a
really good guess. Good
we
stuff.
We will take that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's just combining like a very Florida-like landscape with the wide lands meta, which is found in Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. So pretty much of those, Louisiana was going to be most likely there. And then, well, we're playing with Phil, so why not guess Louisiana? Okay, nice one. I guess maybe just quickly a Spanish moss could be good here. Easily identifiable, and look at that. It's very similar to the palmetto, I would say.
Yeah, and also the ball moss range, because you'll see Spanish moss actually also occurs in South America as well.
Wow. Like the exact same range, basically. Fascinating.
Yeah. They're in the same genus, but they have completely different appearance, which is interesting.
But the US is much more helpful because the ball moss pretty much sticks to Florida and Texas. So
yes, and also if you see Spanish moss, you can be sure you're somewhere in either the deep south or not too far from the ocean, because it doesn't like too cold because it is a tropical plant, and also likes a high degree of moisture as well. So it likes that humidity you get by being in close proximity to the ocean.
Definitely. I can definitely see that. Although, it is occurring occasionally in Salta, which is interesting. Very wet place, to be fair, but yeah. Okay, next one here. More of... Okay, we got eastern white pines here, surely. Is it? Let me see. Oh, yeah, they're quite thin. They're quite thin-leafed here. Could it be Virginia pines? No, I want to say these ones are eastern white pines this time. We have lots of ferns. This is reminding me probably northeastern US. The rocks, the random rocks could also fit with that theory, I think. Maybe New England kind of vibe here. The poles are this time more pale. They're not those dark. Well, this one is fairly dark, actually, but not all the way dark. Yeah, I'm thinking this is not Maine, but maybe like Vermont, something in that region. I mean, it is possible to be elsewhere. I want to say it's not Western this time. The ferns are completely different to the sword ones. They're much more normal looking, or are they? Yeah, I want to say so. And then landscape as well, I think fits better for Northeast. And then I want to say that these are Northeastern white pines, I think. Okay, that's my guess.
Oh yeah, you got it. Those are indeed eastern white pine. So
Eastern,
great stuff.
I keep saying northeastern, just eastern, yes.
Yeah, but no, you got it. Good stuff. And yeah, no, it could be tough sometimes because you were noticing, like, at least from this angle, the needles seem very short, right? Yeah, I think that's the light coming into play there. But yeah, just notice how those branches are very distinctly layered. They extend horizontally over the road. Yeah, like they just seem a lot more organized than like your southern pines, you know, for example.
Which do kind of like, even though this is pretty crazy looking, if you look at some southern ones, they have like branches going all directions randomly. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely varies, but it's a good rule of thumb. Oh, that tree you're looking at there, just now. That's one that I wanted to point out as well. This one's eastern hemlock.
Ooh, I've heard of that.
It's a wonderful tree of especially like that Appalachian Mountains of the eastern US. It really likes it cool. It likes it humid. You find a lot of them in like New England, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of area. And if you zoom in on those leaves again, notice how the new growth at the tips of those branches is like this really light green color, and
Yeah, I
then the
noticed
leaves
that.
behind it are like dark green.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very characteristic trait of hemlocks in general, but
Right.
especially the eastern hemlock, in my experience,
Right. Cool.
is you'll see that really light green color on that new growth.
Beauty. Okay, nice. And so you're saying mostly New England is the type of place you're thinking about with the hemlocks.
Yes. There's one more species here that I'm really excited to show you that has come in handy for me. To your left, you're going to see a maple tree.
Oh,
Zoom in on those leaves.
No, not that one.
Oh, actually, no. It's closer to the ground. Sorry.
All right. Oh, here we are.
That one, yes. You notice those leaves, how they look a little different
Yeah, these
than
ones
maybe
are
other
kind of
maples you've
round.
seen?
Yeah.
They have 3 distinct points
Yeah.
on the leaf.
It's like a duck's foot or something.
Yeah, that's a good observation there. Yeah. This is called the striped maple.
Okay.
This one is one that I've seen multiple times while I play GeoGuessr, and when I see it, it really helps to narrow things down. So it is extremely, I guess, like intolerant of dry conditions. So it really needs like a cool, moist climate to thrive. So you won't see it like in the southern U.S. You know, like anything like even like Alabama, Mississippi, that kind of area is just like too far south for them. They really need it to be cooler. So you'll see a lot of them in the like New England area. You'll see a lot of them in Maine. Again, Vermont, New Hampshire. You'll find them in the Appalachian Mountains all the way down to the Great Smoky Mountains. The further south you go, they're more dependent on being in high elevations. So the further south you go, you'll only find them in extremely high elevation places. But as you go north, their range expands, and you'll find more of them even in coastal areas like coastal Maine. You can see them.
Okay.
But,
so yeah, it's a pretty
really
defined region,
tree.
but you can kind of use the logic of the landscape and the other trees to perhaps work out which zone of the kind of 2 main ones you'd be in. Okay, so feeling pretty decent about my Vermont guess here. Shall we send it in and find out?
Do it.
Ooh, not bad, not bad. New Hampshire there.
Very close.
Pretty good
stuff.
Guess. Pretty good guess, guys. All right. Any one of those that we should check on the map that's most interesting?
Oh yeah, definitely look up striped maple because I think it's easier to show than to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting range. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So very defined. Okay, you can see even Georgia is theoretically possible in high altitude and very much centered around Canada and also New Hampshire, New England kind of area. Okay. Nice.
Yes, that's where I've noticed it more often. Nova Scotia, and then also notice you have a few populations right along the Great Lakes. It's interesting, and I suspect that's because of the climate that you'll find right along the edge of the lakes. That's going to be different than what you'll find even like further inland in Michigan. It would probably be cooler and more humid right along the edge, and it's more suitable for striped maple. In those kind of environments as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, the duckfoot one. I'll try and remember that. That could be quite useful. Although it is a broad range, but can help you like maybe to feel more confident about this kind of region if it's pretty flat. Okay, nice one.
Definitely.
And now we head to the final round. An emotional ending to a very fun video. This one is a bit different. I'm immediately noticing that the road's a little red here, which gives me a particular area that I'm thinking of, especially with these trees, which I don't know the name of them, but I've definitely seen these ones before, 100%. Oh well, we haven't found those next set of larches yet. These ones could be those, especially considering this is the last round of the whole thing. Might be a good inference to make. I think this might be Wisconsin or Upper Peninsula Michigan. That was my vibe here, based on the road, and then vegetation makes sense. We don't have eastern white pines, but we do have like quite a variety of like very northern looking trees here. I would probably consider Canada here were we not playing a US flora map. I guess my guess would be like this peninsula here or something like that. Are we on a grid? We are on a grid here. So yeah, I guess I might prefer a North Wisconsin here. That's my guess. Could also be Minnesota or maybe even Michigan, but I think it's a bit hilly. Yeah, I'll go here.
Wow, solid guess again. You're absolutely right. We are looking at The larch referenced earlier.
This one's
This
straggly
one,
looking.
yeah, it goes by the name tamarack. I
Mhm.
think that's the more common name, but it's a larch. You know, I think it also goes by eastern larch, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken.
Mhm.
But you guessed it correctly. Notice how light green those leaves are compared to some of the other conifers around it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Again, characteristic of the deciduous larch species. So instead of seeing it in the fall, which these would actually be a beautiful yellow color if we
Mm.
were in this location in the fall,
Mm.
because we're in the summer, it has that kind of grass green color.
Mhm. Mhm.
Still very characteristic and pretty easy to tell apart once you see it a few times. You mentioned eastern white pine. We actually do have at least one
Oh,
eastern white pine
here's this
right
one.
there.
Yeah.
That's another one that's again useful. It narrows things down a bit. If you had any doubts that you were in the eastern half of the continent, seeing eastern white pine definitely clears that up.
For sure. And then even a
And
birch
you
over
also
here.
noticed, oh yeah, actually, I didn't even notice that. I think that might be an aspen
Oh,
actually.
aspen, sure.
Oh, that's definitely one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Quaking aspen is that one.
Okay.
But it's another one you see a lot of in extreme northern US, especially like once you're getting close to the Canadian border.
Mhm.
You'll also see them in the Rocky Mountains actually as well.
Okay.
Extremely easy to recognize with that really pale bark.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, you also mentioned the road color, which is actually this is something I noticed too
Mm.
when I was driving around Wisconsin. Is like the road has like this almost purplish hue
Yeah.
to it.
You're a
Yeah,
believer in the
so
red
you
road metas. That's excellent.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, and actually that's probably one of the only road metas that I know because I've seen it in real life.
Yep.
But
Nice, nice.
but
Good.
yeah, no, fantastic guess. Yeah, you got it. But the
Beauty.
main focus of this one was the tamarack.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
For sure.
also, one more thing I wanted to say about
Yep.
this is notice how flat the terrain is when you look in both directions.
Mhm.
Because the species assemblage that we have here is something you could also find like around Maine, for
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
But you tend to also have mountains in the distance when you're around Maine or like
Yeah.
Vermont, New
Yeah.
Hampshire, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And so when I see these more like far northern species combined with like a flat landscape, I instantly think Wisconsin or like northern Minnesota, and I'm almost always right when I do
Yeah.
that. So
100%. And we've got some bollards here. That's fascinating. But anyway, let's go in for the guess here and see. And not too bad. Was northern Michigan, Wisconsin there. So there we go. Oh, that was a real successful seed, actually. Look at that. 18,500. Not too bad at all. And
great
actually, these
stuff.
were all my own guesses, I believe. These were all my own guesses.
Yeah, no,
So
you did fantastic.
got
Good
even
stuff.
getting better as we went on there. So, well, any concluding thoughts here? I mean, we'll actually look at that larch. What was that called again?
Type in tamarack.
And okay, wow, this one's very different distribution, so you're not going to see this one go into Georgia at all. Instead, it's very kind of, yeah, it's kind of like in an arc around the end of the Appalachians all the way to the Great Lakes. So yeah, that's a very useful one.
It's extremely northern. If you see the species, like you'll often see it alongside like spruce and fir trees,
Yeah.
quaking aspen, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's very basically like a boreal species. You can even find them like observations going all the way up to like northern Canada, even
Yeah.
Alaska, I think
Yeah.
has some.
Yeah, there you go. I think about this tree, this one is one of the ones in the video that is a bit harder to recognize. So I'll have to play around with that a bit and maybe come back to you and report on how I've gone recognizing that one. But okay, that brings us to the conclusion of the 3 maps. Any last comments or message to the people before they go and check out our videos on your channel and GeoGuessr Explained?
Yeah, just be curious when you're playing GeoGuessr. When you see a tree and you kind of wonder, what is that? Like, I recommend using iNaturalist, which is this website we've been using, iNaturalist.org. It's completely free. It's an amazing learning tool, what I've been using alongside GeoGuessr to learn this stuff. And I highly recommend checking it out.
You know what I just thought of? You should make a tutorial video for using iNaturalist on your YouTube channel. I think that would be fire.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Right, so you gotta go subscribe to GeoNebula to check out if that's gonna be something that eventually comes out. But I would say, Phil, thank you so much for coming back on the channel and for sharing your knowledge because it is simply fantastic. I hope that you will watch some of my videos and see me getting some really nice guesses based on these tips. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no, you got it. You got it. Like you're already doing a fantastic job using the plants to narrow things down. So I'm confident you're going to keep learning and you're going to do great. And of course, just thank you so much for having me on again. It's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, yeah, the pleasure is all mine. So, guys, thank you very much for watching the video all the way to the end. Again, huge thanks to Phil. Check out our other videos, links in the description for his social medias. And guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Till next time, and goodbye.